Kevin Hurley. You sexy motherfucker. How you going, brother?
Good, brother. What's going on?
Ah, fuck all. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure.
Has anyone talked about where we are right now? Like, and how people are just walking by and are like looking in the window like this? And it kind of makes you feel important, but also like really stupid.
It's a little distracting for some people, but yeah, people have brought it up. It's great, isn't it?
It's cool.
Yeah,
cool.
it's different.
Cool venue.
When I eventually have my own studio, I'm going to try and replicate something very similar.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
So how you been, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I quit my job. Yesterday was my last day.
Congratulations.
So I feel very good. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
Wow.
But, you know, I'm still working part-time with them, so that's super nice because I like the job, but I just didn't want to be in charge anymore, so it was nice.
Nice. And so, yeah, you were talking about trying to maybe downgrade yourself so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have less responsibility?
Essentially, I just demoted myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like, managing all the people anymore. Now I'm just a regular loser.
Pleb. Do you use that term in America, pleb?
No.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Pleb, I think it stands for plebeian, which is like a poor person.
Yeah, there's a good chance that people do use it. I just don't know what it means. And then when people say it, I'm just like, oh, because I don't feel like arguing anymore about anything.
Is it for? I mean, obviously, managerial positions can be tiring. Yeah. But did you do it for another reason? Like you just wanted more time, or you wanted?
No, that was it. That was it. Mainly because like they were trying to get me in a full-time position for a long time. I've been with the company for about 10 years now, and they've been trying, but I'm like, no, I'm a comedian. Like I want to go out at night, and I have other jobs and whatever. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, why not? Like, hell yeah. Like we're inside. Like I get to work at home now full-time. The health insurance, great. And then I just stayed in it a little too long, like a year and a half too long when I really liked the money.
Yeah. And
I liked the health insurance, but I don't know. Money just, it's crazy to think that like I'll give you a perfect, when I was a kid, like you'd be like, oh, if I could make $100,000 a year, that's so much money. And now in New York, that's nothing.
It's nothing.
I can't buy a house. I bought Pokemon cards. That's all I bought with my extra money and made terrible investments, especially now because everything sucks.
I got a friend, one of my best friends from home, shout out Shardy.
Fuck you, Shardy.
He just started buying Pokemon cards.
Oh, it's great.
He said, he's buying these ones. He's like, dude, I think these are going to be worth a lot of money.
When did he start? Because if he started like in December, it blew up.
Yeah.
So if he did it before that, he's already doubled his money.
Okay, I think he started this year, but I don't know. I'm going to find out.
So 2025.
Yeah, but he said
he's probably getting it at when it is peaking a little bit. But
isn't that insane? Like,
I'll give you a good intro line for that because here's why I quit my job.
Yeah.
Here's exactly why I quit my job. Jim Carrey did a commencement speech at a college years and years and years ago that I've thought about every day of my life, which was essentially his dad was the funniest guy he's ever known and could have made it as a comic, as a whatever, but he decided not to pursue it and choose a safe job for his wife, for his kid, and just keep that safe job for years and years and years. And then 20, 30 years later, he got fired from that job. Wow. So you can fail at the things that you don't like, so you might as well go for the things that you do like. And I'm never having kids. So who cares about money? I like the grind. I'm just going back to it. And that's, I think about that often.
Respect, man.
And what's funny about that is I used to quote that all the time, even before I was full-time. And then I realized, oh, shit, like I'm in that now. Like I used to think, oh, I'm in New York, I'm a comic, I'm da-da-da-da. But like, no, like I wasn't writing enough because I was 9 to 5 at my desk and stressing about other people's money and other people's problems, which I really actually care about. That's the other problem is I cared a little too much about it. Because if I like dig into something, I will do it with everything I can, so it was just tough.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of foreman roles in construction, and they were really tough jobs, a lot of management roles, but you end up really taking on everyone else's problems. You end up taking on a lot. And when you really care, it's hard to separate that from your everyday life.
Yep.
The grind's real. So tell me about these fucking Pokemon cards. I'm really interested. What do you remember when we were kids?
Yeah.
Like because I'm 36 this year, so we're about the same age. And I remember we were kids, Pokemon cards were a thing. Who would have ever thought that these things would ever be worth money? Why are they?
Everybody.
Why are they made a comeback?
My dad always used to tell me they'd be worth money. You shouldn't open that. You shouldn't blah 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 blah. I had so much like a stack of hollow edition, first edition, blah blah blah, that I gave away when I went to college. That could have bought me a car today.
Wow.
And I regret that. The way I got back into it, this was a couple years ago. Number one, I just had excess cash and I didn't know what to do with it because I was like investing, but like, what do I need? Like, I have a good apartment. I don't need a car. I can't buy a house. I've invested in my Roth IRA. Like, what do I need money for? And I found some of the old cards at my parents' house. And then I went to just a random card show one time. I bought a card and I just like got obsessed again.
Wow.
And it's crazy because now those cards I bought 2 years ago, it's skyrocketing right now. And it'll go back down, but like it's skyrocketing right now. And it's skyrocketing because the game came out on your phone, like the new Pokemon card game that everyone got obsessed with. And then they came out with a new set for why are we talking about Pokemon cards?
I'm just interested. We're going to veer off, but I think it's fucking cool. No, it's just funny that you mention it because as I said, I got a friend from home that's like, he's getting into it.
Yeah,
he's
it's
just
great.
he's doing it for the money.
I didn't do it for the money. I just did it for fun. But if I sold the collection now, I kind of tallied it up the other day. If I got it at like 85%, it'd be like $40,000.
Wow. There you go. Holy shit. So, man.
And I spent probably about $15,000 on it. But again, it's like really up right now.
It's funny what we as human beings put our value into. Like 1 minute it's gold, the next minute it's crypto, then you got Pokemon cards, and then it's these cycles of life just change all the time.
Brother, speaking of, I don't know if you know like kind of what I do for a living. I still do it, but I found this job because, long story short, I lecture at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I like do tour guiding stuff.
Cool.
And my whole job is like bringing humor to art and bringing millennials and things that are funny in the stories, but like also appreciating art. The only thing that makes art valuable is what people are willing to pay for it. That's it. That's it. It doesn't. Why is the Mona Lisa an important painting?
It's important because people think it's important.
Why?
Is it the first thing that comes to my mind is the artist?
Nope.
I mean, it's not that impressive of a painting. I've
Exactly.
seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because years and years and years ago, it wasn't an important painting, and it was just randomly on the wall at the Louvre. Somebody came in with a smock and a tunic and whatever, and took it off the wall and stole it. And this picture was in the papers. Like, oh my God, something was stolen from the Louvre. Look. More people came to see the dusty outline of the painting than ever to see that painting before. And then they found it a few years later, and then people came to see it.
Wow.
And then eventually people forgot that story, like yourself, because you never even knew that story. And now it's, well, the smile and the eyes follow you and the blah, blah, blah. No, it's just a story that people knew it was a painting, people forgot about it, and now it's a big thing.
Wow.
Would a banana duct taped to a wall be worth any money if it didn't get as much news coverage as it got? No. Mm-mm.
You're so right. Yeah, it really is. The value of something is just what we put into it as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. I
likening that to comedy is getting past the cellar, like that big of a deal. It is to me because I care about it. Yeah. Like I really care about it.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to get past the cellar, but is it actually going to be valuable? No, you get like $50 a set and you do a couple sets, maybe you make some connection. But it's really important to say, I'm past the cellar. That's
every comedian's milestone.
Sure.
That's like the pinnacle
of
New York City, isn't it?
For us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, for sure. So what was your comedy origin story? Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, it's pretty. I'll make it a short story. Stop texting me, bitch. Texting me, Nick Viagas. Right. I went to high school and college for acting. When I was in college, I signed up my friend for an open mic because it was like a lottery thing. And he didn't get on, and I did. And I was like, oh, you can just go under my name. And he was like, no, that's not really how it works. Mm-hmm. So he just wrote a set for me for like an hour at a pizza place and then went and did the set. And I thought about that for years. And then I was doing a show called Shakespeare Abridged. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's just a 3-man show where the three guys do every Shakespeare play in 90 minutes, right? And it's a comedy. And there's a point in there where the other 2 guys fight and leave, and I'm by myself. And the script just says, fill time. And so I used to just start talking to the audience, and that was my favorite part. And I would always think about that time I did that open mic. So eventually I just was like, you know what, I like this. Let me just try to write some stuff and go do some comedy. And then, then I just fell in love with it and moved to New York about 13 years ago to pursue acting and stand-up. And there were just so many more opportunities for stand-up, and I hate auditioning. I'm just a really bad auditioner. And that's how I just started getting into it. And then I just kind of stopped acting and full bore into comedy.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're amazing to watch. I really enjoy your comedy.
Thank you, man. I
And
appreciate that.
your crowd work is...
It's cheating.
But it's some of the best that I've seen. It's really, really good. You're a pro at... You're very natural at crowd work, and you're funny.
Thank you. That took a very, very long time to figure out how to do. But now that I know how to do it, I don't want to do it anymore. But it's cheating. It just feels like cheating sometimes because I know how to do it, and it kind of saves bad jokes. And so I'm going through a thing where I'm trying to stop it for a little while.
Okay.
Because I don't think it'll ever go away, but it took a really long time to figure out how to be myself to people, which is an asshole, and just be likable for it.
Yeah.
And I think I figured it out.
Yeah,
So,
you have.
My wife calls it a nice hole. It took a long time because, like,
Well, talk to me. How do you get good at crowd work? What is the journey with that for someone?
the original journey is pretty simple. The original journey is, why am I talking to this person? Okay? Because you can go on stage and be like, where are you from? And they say New Jersey. And you're like, ew. Great, that's a line. But where does that lead to? Because then, do you have a joke about where you're from? So what you want to do, where are you from? Okay, let me see if I can add something. Where are you from? Da, 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 da. And if nothing's working, well, I'm from Australia. And in Australia, we blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing of like, are you two dating? Are you together? Okay, well, my wife. Like, you just have to be okay with that section bombing a little bit.
Yeah.
But know that if things aren't going well, you can always lead it towards yourself. And in a perfect world, it does go well, and then it leads perfectly into your bit that you're doing.
Gotcha.
That's how it takes a long time to do once you try it for the first couple times, and it's incredibly hard to do at open mics.
Yeah.
Because at open mics, it's just comics. It's pointless.
Yeah.
So you have to be comfortable enough with the stage time that you're getting to be able to, if you get 15 minutes on a real show, to dick around for 5 of them. You know, are you comfortable enough in yourself to do that? Are you comfortable with the fact that if that 5 minutes bombs, this person will book you again, right? To just keep trying it and keep practicing it.
Gotcha. Now, you run...
That's my opinion.
No, I think it's
That's
great.
how it worked for me.
And it makes sense to me because I've just started to do a little bit of it on shows, but it's relative to the bit that I'm about to drop into.
Exactly.
So like if I'm doing a bit on cocaine, I'll like ask someone, hey, has anyone ever done cocaine in the crowd? And then I'll move into my bit that I'm doing about using cocaine back in the day.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
And then also you do want to remember the things that were funny because there's only a finite amount of answers to a question. And so if you get that question, you can just repeat that answer over and over again. And it seems like you're coming off the cuff because they just said New Jersey. Like, how did he know that you were going to tell a story about New Jersey, you know?
Yeah, I gotcha. Now, you do the Comedy Mob.
Yeah.
You're one of the co-founders of the Comedy Mob. How did that come about? And it's a great organization. If anyone doesn't know about the Comedy Mob, check it out. They do open mics, weekly open mics where they're a one or two, mostly a one-person bringer, aren't
Just
they?
one.
One-person bringer. So they're mini...
Or none, but it's harder to get on.
They're mini shows, which is great for when you want to try some material in front of a live audience that's low stakes. And it's a great thing you're doing. It's very simple. So, how'd you get into that? It's a great thing.
It is fun. The only time people are mad at us are because it's too popular and they can't get on it. And I'm okay with that, right? That's okay. I'm gonna make this again a short. It's a long story, so I'm gonna make it a short story. But long story short, I met my co-founder George, who's an older guy but a comic and a really nice guy, and we were in a writing class together. and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, I got the Grizzly Pear on McDougal Street. Have you ever been there?" And I was like, "No, never been there." He goes, "They gave me a prime time Thursday at 6 to do an open mic. Do you want to host it?" And I said, "No, I don't want to do that." And then he said, "I'll give you $40." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." And so he goes, he was a paralegal at the time. And he goes, "I don't have a lot of money, but I have more money than broke-ass comics. So I just want an open mic that feels like a real show, even if like comics just stay the whole time." Which, by the way, if you're thinking about running an open mic, you should. It's a good way to get into places and get a little more stage time. But everyone starts open mics the same way, where they all have the best intentions. Everyone's going to stay because I'm going to ask them to stay, and I won't charge any money. It'll just be one drink for the club. And you know what? I'm even going to spend money to bring in like a good, like Josh Adam Myers. He's going to come and do the mic, and everyone's going to watch that for 20 minutes, and I'll pay him, and it'll be awesome. And then you quickly realize that people will not stay for the mic.
Yeah.
They'll ask to go up early. They'll leave right away. They'll be on their phone. It's just, it doesn't work out. And then eventually, 5-6 months down the line, they go, "Oh, I can keep doing this, or I can charge them all $5 and I could make $50. Yeah, I'm going to do that instead." Right? And that's what people do, right? So George wanted this open mic to be good, and he wanted to give a gift card to the best comic. Here's how you're going to stay. We're all going to stay, and if you all stay, we'll vote for the best comic, and the best comic gets a $50 gift card. And I said, guess what? We tried that in Philly when I was doing stuff. It didn't work, because people still leave, and then you only have 3 people, and then 2 vote for their friend, and now you got to give a $50 gift card to this guy that wasn't very good, but that's how it got voted. I said, if you really want an audience, how about we just give people $5 for every audience member they bring? Boom, let's do that. That sounds good, because maybe one time it'll be 10, and that's 10 audience members, which is crazy, at an open mic, and that's $50. Maybe sometimes it'll be 2, sometimes it'll be 20, and that's $100, but maybe it'll all even out to $50, and that'll be cool. And so we were doing that, and sometimes it worked, and most of the time it didn't. So like once a month, we'd have like 10 audience members. Still about 15, 20 people signing up every time. They'd bring like one person, we'd give them $5. One person would bring 10 people, and we'd be like, "This is the best mic in the world," because think about that. It's an open mic with 10 audience members. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
And you give them $50 and stuff. And then I just kind of decided I don't want to do it anymore. I felt bad taking his money all the time too. And I said, "Hey."
That would have been coming out of his pocket?
Yeah. And he was paying. I didn't really know him that well at the time either.
Yeah.
So he was just giving me $40 every time. It was good. I was like, "I don't think I want to do this anymore." We were like 5 months in. And he goes, please, it's working. I know it's working. I was like, "All right, just stop paying me because I feel bad. Buy my drinks if you can." Like, that'd be cool, right? And so we did just keep going because George wanted to keep going, right? It wasn't because of me. The classic trope I just told you about was me. Like, I didn't want to keep going, and then we don't know what happened, because 8 months in, that 15 to 20 people all of a sudden was 50 to 80 people signing up. I think word just got around. This is an open mic that has audience members. And if you heard that, what would you do? You would try to get on that open mic, 100%. Right? So then we could start picking and choosing. Are you bringing somebody? Are you bringing one guest to give you that money, right? And so then, like, it would be like, out of 20 people on an open mic, whatever, like 15 of them were bringing people, and then we'd put in like 5 people that we knew and good comics to like mix in and make it like a real show. And everything was working really well. And then eventually we just kind of like stopped paying people, but it was still working. Like, it was still like people just wanted to get on, because if you bring one friend, your roommate, your girlfriend, another comic, that's it, and it was supporting the bar. And then he got another idea where I give a lot of credit to George. He got another day where he went to Stand Up New York and was like, "Hey, we want to do a show." And he wanted to be a bringer show. And they were like, "Okay, great." And he goes, "I have one caveat, which is the booker just has to watch the show." And we were like, and they said, "Okay." And George comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I don't want to ask you to bring people, but I'm asking for 6 people. Can you do 3? And I was like, "Bitch, I never invited anyone to anything. I'll bring 10 people. I don't give a shit," right? Yeah. So I brought like 10 people just for fun, right? Yeah. And it was a great show. And honestly, I was like, yeah, the booker's there. Fuck you, right? And she was, and she passed me from that show. That was Candy, who's the booker at New York Comedy Club now, but at the time she was stand-up New York. And it was my first club in New York I got passed at, kind of accidentally. I didn't even really know she was there. And she then moved to New York Comedy Club. The owner of New York Comedy Club was asking about what Comedy Mob is, and she goes, well, I do know what it is because I kind of brought them in, which she did because she's awesome. I love Candy to death. And then we did Sunday at New York Comedy Club, kind of the same style, just bring one person. And then after the pandemic, we moved out of the Grizzly Pear to stand-up New York on Mondays, and then did a second show at New York Comedy Club at the other location, and now it's moved to Rodney, so it's Rodney's and this. So we do 3 mics a week, and we do 1 show on Saturday, which unfortunately is a bringer show, but it is a way, the same way of like, we promise you the booker will watch your tape. Now, unfortunately, the booker won't be there because that's not something Rodney's would do, but we make them watch the tape. They let us know, and if they say yes, we get them an audition for the club.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've created a pathway for comics.
Yeah. For that one specific
which is
club,
the same pathway, coincidentally, that you had.
that I had accidentally, which
That's
I didn't
amazing.
even know. Yeah. Now there's a lot of caveats to all this, and there's a lot of like, if we have 100 comics do our show every Saturday, and the reason we don't do this at the mic, by the way, is because the mic's chill. Like, we don't want pressure at the mic.
Yeah.
It's try out new stuff.
Yeah.
We've had all kinds of comics show up. We've had Gaffigan show up, and Bill Burr show up, and Ronnie Chang, and like all these awesome comics that just show up because it's a good mic, and it's like on weird times, which is great. But out of 100 comics, realistically, you can get 5 of them passed at the club. Maybe 10 of them get an audition, or 15, 20 of them get an audition, and of those people, it's 5. So then it kind of turns out that 95 comics are mad at you, and it's like, damn, fuck, like, I don't want to do this, but if we didn't have to have the bringer aspect of it, and we were just running shows, I don't know, like, would I even want amateur comics,
Yeah.
Would I? Yes. I'll give you another example, because the Thursday got so good that we kind of could have just turned it into a pro show. And we kind of went back to our roots. We had a really long conversation about it. We're like, no, like, this is for amateurs. So even though we don't need people in the audience anymore on the Thursday, we still want those amateurs because we want amateurs to get stage time.
Yeah.
And so it's also like because we've been doing this for 8-9 years, something like that. It's a balance of, remember what it was like.
Yeah.
Remember, I started comedy 15 years ago. I moved to New York City 13 years ago. Remember what it was like 13 years ago. And remember that we started this to support people, even though people get mad at us and there's nothing we can do. And, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fantastic what you guys
I wish
are
this
doing.
were a funnier story.
No, it's just is what it is. It's very interesting because, yeah, you've created a pathway, and there's not many people that are doing that. There's a lot of broken promises in this the comedy scene. It's like, yeah, we're going to get you in front of the booker, and
Yeah.
it's not, that doesn't happen for the most part. So
It does and it doesn't. It depends on what it is. It depends on. I will sing the praises of New York Comedy Club because they are actively passing the most amateur comics, mainly because they have 3 clubs and because they use a lot of amateur comics for their check spots. It's not just 1 check spot. They'll do, on the weekdays it's 3, and on the weekend it's 2. And now they have 3 clubs and a lot of popular shows. So they are actively really trying to get new talent in. But some clubs aren't that.
Yeah.
Some clubs are just bringer show clubs, or or they're whatever. And there's nothing. I don't know. That's their policy. It's like that's what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
When people get mad at that kind of stuff, I'm mad at it too. Like, I would do it. Like, it's a way to kind of cut in. Kind of cut the line a smidgen, right? But there's good and bad things about that, because the good thing would be, like, oh, I got in like faster than I normally would have, or faster than this person who's slightly funnier than me. But because I was willing to do this thing, I got in and they didn't, right? But there's also, you can just skip that. Like if you're good enough, you can just skip that process.
Yeah.
Like I know so many comics who came up to us. One of the problems with the Comedy Mob is so many like bigger comics like try to get stage time with us, and we just don't have enough stage time.
Yeah.
And we just like, damn, like I can't. Like we only have so many spots to give out, and if I'm doing 5 of these and 10 of these, then the audience gets a little lower. So you can just be better, and you can just pass. A lot of comics have just skipped us, and it's like I'm like, great, hell yeah. Like we like to be the path through Rodney's, but if they go right to the booker because they have a manager. And they're very, very funny. Like, hell yeah. Like, skip it. Go right ahead. You know?
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. And then the bad part of it, and this is kind of like a warning to more amateur comics, is in comedy, it's better to be 5 years too late than 5 minutes too early. Because we don't get a lot of comics second auditions. Like it's really, that first audition is actually much easier to get than the second audition.
Gotcha.
If you didn't get the first time. So you really got to know that you're ready. You really got to know that this is a business. These people put their livelihoods into these clubs and they need audience members, you know.
And if you do the mics, at the New York Comedy Club. You've also got the Rodney's on the Monday.
Yeah.
Which of the shows that you're doing that your tape ends up being in front of the booker? That's Rodney's, and you have
that's our 4th one. So it's Mike, and then our showcase, and the showcase is on Saturdays at Rodney's.
And then what one would you have to do if you're a comic and you're wanting to get in front of the New York Comedy Club booker?
So that's tough because their process changes often. But essentially, you have to do, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't really know the exact way to do it. Because what I did was, because I was in, eventually I got an audition.
Gotcha.
And I got an audition with a lot of the amateur comics who happened to do Candy's class. Because at the time, Candy had a class that was like, you then guarantee an audition if you do the class. That's not a guarantee anymore. Though that still is a very possible way to get there. They have these amateur auditions. I remember at the same time there were secret pro auditions that I didn't know about. Like, those are like Maddie Weiner was on that, and like Jamie Wolf was on that.
Maddie Weiner's so funny,
hilarious, right? Yeah. But she didn't go the path of the taking the class or just getting to know people. Like, but for example, the auditions just happened a couple weeks ago, and a couple of our Comedy Mob people who are just regulars. They don't work at the club, but they were just like hanging out at the club or hanging out at the mob. You know, the assistant, I don't know his official title, but the assistant booker was there, and they got auditions from that. You
Amazing.
know, maybe it's a recommendation. Like it's, you know, you can get recommended into it. There's a bunch of different ways they find new talent. Yeah. That's why I will sing the praises of New York Comedy Club as much as I can, because they are actively trying to find new, really good people, and it's not just one path to get there; it's a couple.
Yeah.
But again, make sure you're ready.
Yeah.
Because getting that audition, not a lot of people get a second audition if you don't make it.
Now, when you do get past these clubs, are you expected to do a 20-minute set? What is the standard of that you need to have? Or are you, at first, you're just going to be doing 5 minutes at the check spots?
Now, the 12 people that listen to this podcast, are they like amateur comics or are they pro comics?
There's 13 people listening to
13? Okay, got it.
I've had like 4,500 listens now.
Oh, geez, look at this piece of
you
shit.
Ooh,
actually.
It's going okay.
I'm telling you.
A few more than 12.
You couldn't let that slide, could you? All right.
Well, you can't. You gotta let me have something.
It super depends. I will tell you about the path that I went on, because it's also be careful what you wish for kind of thing. Yeah. Right? The first club I got passed at in New York, because I was passed at Helium in Philly. That's a completely different thing, because that's also a headliner club. And I went through a very long process for that. And that's, you're hosting 7 shows for the weekend for like a Pete Holmes or Bobby Lee. And those are the people I opened for. In New York, when I got past Sam New York, you're doing the check spot, right? And the check spot is essentially they are dropping the checks on you.
Mm-hmm.
And some clubs are much harder than others. Stand-up New York was impossible
Mm-hmm.
because they drop all the checks at once. And you just followed, my first time, I had followed Jay Farrow
Mm-hmm.
from Saturday Night Live, and he murdered. And they're like, and now Kevin. And I was like, yay. Penises are weird, right? Like, this is, anybody? No? Those are really, really hard. And then even New York Comedy Club, they will start you at checks, maybe guests here and there if you want, right? But the first checks you get are probably on the weekdays. And the first check I specifically got was at 1 a.m. On like a Tuesday.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, be careful what you wish for, Kevin. I was like, I'll be there. Like, yes, I'm not saying no to any of these things.
No.
If you, like, I'm not going to be the guy that says no. Like, so yeah, I'll be there. And they were tough, right? And then you get up to the weekend, and then you get paid on the weekends for New York Comedy Club specifically, which is nice. I think you might get paid on the weekday too, but I can't remember. But you get paid a little more on the weekends, and it's always sold out, and it's always great. And sometimes you're doing first check, which is harder because that's when all the checks are dropping, whatever. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you do second check, which is just they're wrapping things up, and now you're really just closing the show.
Yeah.
Like after all these comics, which is great. But again, be careful what you wish for because they always they do their checks at the end. So before you is usually a great freaking comic.
Wow.
And it gets really hard to follow Dante Nero. It gets very hard to follow Aaron Berg sometimes. It gets very, because they just have the audience roaring. They steal all the crowd work. They have already gone so raunchy that you can't do raunchy things. If you do clean, it's like, well, we just did this. So it's tough, but that's also where you prove yourself and you learn things. And that's where you figure out what's actually working and what's not working. And damn, this is my favorite joke, but I don't think it's good enough. Maybe I should just cut it. And not cut it, but save it for later. And in a year or two, maybe I'm a better writer and I can come back to it because I liked the concept of it. Yeah. Right? Again, I want to be funnier during this podcast, but
Be yourself, brother. You're doing great.
There's a lot of information to get at, though. Like, you're asking me important questions. That,
it's very important.
I'm just trying to tell you my path and how I kind of go through things, even,
I just got a residency at Broadway.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Thank you. But yeah, I've been doing. Rich is great. I love Rich Brooks. He's thrown me several spots a week now, which is awesome. But I tend to do a lot of the check spots. Yeah. And yeah, they are tough spots. And I've been following pretty strong comics. You know, guys that are really killers. But yeah, I think it's making me better. It's making me better. Yeah. It's
fun fact. I've never been to Broadway Comedy Club.
Oh really? Yeah. I love Broadway.
I just never went there.
You know what I love about it is they have a full team of barkers. They've got several guys that go out to Times Square and that's their jobs. Every show, Monday to Sunday, they're pretty well sold out. Mm-hmm. And they do 3 shows a night during the week. Weekends they do 5 shows. They're all international crowds. There's very rarely there's anyone that lives in New York City from there. So I feel like it's almost like a mini Comedy Cellar in that sense because the Comedy Cellar is a very international crowd.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I'm enjoying about it. I've learned to do things more in a way that's going to appeal to the masses rather than like a New York joke, which wouldn't generally.
There was a old show, I think it was on like 125th in Harlem. It was at a youth hostel. Mm-hmm. It was twice a week. But it was great because they have a guaranteed audience of like whoever's staying at the hostel. And that was like a great training ground to be like, oh, you don't get this reference or this reference? Because they were all super foreign, like barely English, just sitting there watching a show being like.
Were they enjoying it? Did they get into it?
Sure. But it was a good test of like, oh, damn, I thought that was like a universal sentence, but I guess not. And you've seen The Office, but you've never seen Family Matters. Like, you don't know who Steve Urkel is, but you know who this person is. Like, so like you're trying to make cultural references that like maybe they actually do know, but now you're learning it.
Yeah. So what's your writing technique? Like, where does a bit come from and how, and then how do you then form that into a workable bit on a stage?
2 things I'll say about that, which is the most common thing I do is write on stage. Yeah. I am lucky enough to have the Comedy Mob where we have these 3 mics a week, which are usually pretty full, and I can just kind of go on stage and it doesn't really matter what I do or how good I do, and I can just bomb my ass off and it doesn't matter, and I can just test stuff out. And that's where the crowd work stuff comes in too, because I'll have a thought and I'll just talk it out. Was that funny? Huh? And then just like maybe a little riff will come. But the main thing I'll tell you about that is, in my opinion, here's what's going to happen to you. Here's what's going to happen to the 17 people.
17 now, thank you.
You will write, well, my following, my 5 people are going to support. You will write your best joke. And then you're going to be like, how did I write that? And you're like, I sat down, I took an Adderall, I started writing out a story, I cut it down, boom, that's how I write. And then you will try to replicate that, and it will not work. Then you're like, the second joke I wrote, I was shooting the shit with my friends, and I was running shit by them, and da-da-da, and that's my bit. So I'm going to do that, and that will not work the second time. You can't replicate it. You can try many things. You could try writing on stage. You could try that sit down and focus. You could try shooting the shit with your friends. You could try a writer's group like I did, and that's how I met George. But I don't really think, in my personal opinion, the way it works for me is I can never really repeat what I do. I just have to keep finding new ways to find new bits and find new ways to talk about things.
Yeah. I've got...
and again, I'm going to repeat, don't throw anything away. Even if it didn't work, you might be better in a year. You might be better in 2 years. You might come up with that line that you've been waiting for. Because I do think the best way, it also depends if you're a storyteller or if you're a one-liner comic. Because if you're a storyteller comic, if you have one big punch in the joke, that's all you need, right? It's like a bullet in your holster that you know's there. So now I could take this line, do a minute beforehand, find another joke, knowing that I have that big punch at the end, get a second one. Great. So now I have 2 jokes. Let's add 2 more minutes to this. Oh, all that sucked? Let me cut all that. But don't forget, I still have 2 jokes in this story. Let's do another minute, like the different path. And now I have 3 jokes in this story. Hell yeah. Like now it's starting to build, and now it's starting to... Also, don't be afraid to cut things. That's my biggest, I get so attached to things, and comics will come up to me and be like, that was funny. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody ever laughs at it. I like it.
Yeah.
And comics like it. So you just got to eventually cut things, which is sad. But yeah.
I've noticed lately I've been doing what you say, writing on stage. I've just had an idea, and I've done it on stage. I've done it at a mic, done it at another mic, done it on a third mic, and then I do it at a show. And I've got 4 bits now that I'm doing, which are working great, which I've never even put pen to paper. They're not in my phone. They're not in my notes. I've just repeated them. And when they come out, they come out very natural. And it's a really beautiful process that I'm learning or teaching myself. It's amazing how we change and evolve and grow and learn, and our style changes and things. I'll always write, but if I can do writing and just write on stage as well, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's tough. Also, it's tough because I don't know where to go in this. Because again, it's like, is there amateur comics listening? I used to run a podcast that was past the podcast, and it was for amateur comics, right? And so we would give a lot of advice about that stuff, and it was Stand Up New York's podcast. But there's
most people listening will be amateur comics.
Yeah, so that's... I've lost bits that I've done for a year, and I never wrote them down, and then I stopped doing them, and I forget them. So you should now write them down. That's definitely important to do that. Okay, well, here's the thing. What are the traits of the best comics? I think overall, it's you kind of feel like they're talking directly to you. You kind of feel like it's very conversational, and to a point, the trick is this is the first time I'm saying this thing, them not knowing that you've said it 1,000 times, 1,000 times, right? So being natural on stage and trying to find that natural, that's why, what's the Seinfeld adage of 10, 15 years before you can be yourself? That is true. It couldn't be more true, because if you think you're good right now, every year you should be like, man, I fucking sucked last year, but this year I'm good. And then the next year you should be like, I wasn't very good last year. This year I'm really good, until you hit a certain point. But it is about being natural on stage. So you don't want to lose that. Why does it happen so often that the first time you tell a joke and you're nervous to say it, and it's the first time you've said it, people react really well to it and they laugh. And then you're like, this is good. And now you know it and you start saying it, and now it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It's because you haven't found that comfortability of the story and the naturalness to talk to the audience. And again, you don't even have to do crowd work with the audience. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to crowd work where you're from and blah, blah, blah. But it honestly feels like a conversation. Yeah. A lot of amateur comics, a lot of first-year comics, you know, they will memorize their set. And if something happens, they don't sway from that. And it just feels like a performance. And they're good jokes. Like, yeah, that's a good joke. That's a good joke. Like, but
you can tell, I can tell now, whereas I couldn't when I first was doing comedy, but when it feels like it's a scripted joke like that they've written and they've memorized it, sometimes can feel too robotic with people.
Of course.
And that doesn't feel good to watch.
Of course.
It just feels unnatural, like you're watching a play. You're not watching a reel. It's coming from the heart of someone.
Dude, I've been on stage where I've literally been saying my act and thinking about like, oh, look at that person over there. That's a fun hat. And I'm like literally I'm doing my set, but I'm thinking about like, oh, fuck, did I leave my keys in the like?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's like a consciousness.
And are those ever my best sets? Never. Never, ever. Yeah, sure, they're laughing when I'm training them to laugh because now my cadence even causes laughter, like blah, 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 blah. And now they're like, oh, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy how that happens.
Now, what is the trick for getting past at other clubs for comics when they're coming up? Like, obviously, you know, most of the time they're doing a tight 5. But if you do get past, you need to have a 20-minute set. Like, is that something? Because I've got a friend who's passed at the comic strip, and when he does late night, his sets are all 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to get past at a club, do you need to make sure you have 20 minutes of material, or do they build you in slowly? They'll start you with a 5, then give you a 10, and then give you a 15. So Broadway, for example, seemed to only be giving me 5.
Sure.
I work at St. Mark's a couple of nights a week, and they give me anywhere from 6 to 10. But from what I've gathered with Broadway, it's a slow progression. They'll give you 6, and then they'll give you 7, and then is that what it's like with other clubs as well?
I wouldn't put any like emphasis on that.
Yeah.
Like ideally, they start you off on the weekdays, and those are 7-minute sets till you get to the weekends, which are 10-minute sets, right? But like we try to make sure you have a tight 10, which is why it's a double audition, right? You audition for the first time, the booker watch your tape. We ask that you do new-ish stuff. You don't have to do 100%, but like give us 60%, 50%, right? If this story ties into that story, then that's fine. But we need to know that you can do 10. You know that time I check spotted for Jay Farrow, which was my first check spot, something happened with the internet for the checks, and my first check spot at Sam New York in New York City was 27 minutes.
Whoa.
So
what if
should you audition
what if you
for
didn't have material? What would you do?
I'd been around enough. It was probably my 4th year in the city. Not, 2nd year in the city, but like 4 years doing comedy. Okay. So every year I probably got 7-8 minutes of material, right?
Gotcha.
That's where you got there too early, and that's gonna fuck you over, right? I literally I didn't say that. Like that's an age-old adage. It's better to be 5 years too late than 5 minutes too early. Because if they need you to go on for 27 and you've run out of material, they will not book you again. So all that joy and all that feeling that you had of getting past is gone because you failed like at the actual job they hired you for, So again, you have to wait until you have at least 40 minutes of material. Like I'm talking like 20 minutes good, 20 minutes, this is my B material, right? Yeah. But did we talk about, was it off mic we were talking about the Cellar, or was it on mic? I can't remember. But when you audition at the Cellar and you get passed at the Cellar, you're not really passed. Every show you do is then an audition. Like they will continue moving you around, moving you to their clubs, moving you in front of people, behind people, bulleting, closing, and they watch everything. And some people then stopped getting booked. And it's like, oh, great, that sucks. Like, because again, they might have gotten there a little too early.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting. That's wild.
Jeff Arcuri was telling me when he got past the Cellar, like, I was like, is it everything you hoped and dreamed it would be? And he's like, not yet, because I am not fucking around. They are getting my A material every set.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every time I'm up there for the first year, I'm giving it my good shit.
Yeah,
And then you can, once they know you and trust you,
then you can throw in some new bits in.
Yeah, then you can start writing on stage. Then you can start doing that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Think about that. That's a shitty feeling. Like, think about getting your dream, getting past at the Comedy Cellar, and then 6 months later, they just aren't booking you anymore. And you're like, well, okay.
Do you think you can come back from that?
Sure, of course you can.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
You're just going to take a little bit of work.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or you could just go different paths. This is all the path that I want to do. I like being at clubs. I like doing this stuff. And I hate social media, which is why people will not listen to this podcast. Because when I post it on social media, my 5 followers will not. But you think of a guy like, I don't want to say the wrong story, but I think somebody like Tim Dillon, I don't think he got the Cellar when he auditioned for it. And then he had what am I going to do? I'm creating my own path. And then got incredibly popular with his podcast to the point where now he's selling out arenas and didn't need that path to begin with. Though I would assume at the time he really wanted it and really thought this could move my career in a way. But no, it was creating your own path and doing your own thing. Comedy Mob to a way is my own path where it doesn't make me money and it doesn't make me popular, but I get to do what I want to do, which is comedy in clubs.
Yeah.
In
front of live audiences.
Consistently.
Yeah.
We do 4 shows a week that I don't give myself 20 minutes, but sometimes I'll do 5 to 10, right?
Yeah.
But if I wanted to do an hour this week, I could do it.
Yeah.
Because I built up that cachet. We've built up that cachet to where it is a good show and it is mine,
Yeah. So where did you grow up? You're not from New York originally?
I'm originally from Philly.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is there a big comedy scene there?
I don't really know anymore. People ask me about it, but it was I moved here about 13 years ago. So I'm not really there anymore.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was to a point where there was one good mic a night. So you weren't really hopping around. You would go to the Raven Lounge and you would go to the Helium mic, and then you would go to Jersey for the High Note Humor mic, and then you would but separate days. And then the whole goal was to get past at Helium, which at the time was the only club, but now they have the Philly Punchline. And once I got past there, I was like, great, New York, let's go.
Yeah.
I know I can do it now. Let's go. And then for the first year, I was always going back to Helium because that's great stage time. And a best club in the city is Helium Philly.
Really?
Oh, in the whole country, I think Helium Philly is my favorite club.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. Huge to a point. Sits about 150, 200. Tight, low ceilings, good focus.
Yeah.
Laughter bounces off the walls, and it's a kill box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about Comedy 24th Street New York New York Comedy Club.
I love that.
It's that, but 4 times the size. That's a kill box, just a bigger one.
There's something to say about being in a club where the walls are tight and the people are packed in like sardines. Sometimes it really does just make a big difference, doesn't it? Have you ever performed at a theater?
Yeah, of course.
So what is that like comparison to being in a?
It depends, man. I mean, I've gone on. I did a college tour pre-pandemic, like a 3-month thing where I did a lot of theaters. Sometimes I did it in a cafetorium, But if it just depends. You can do a theater where people paid for a ticket to come see comedy, and it's great. But I did a theater in Atlantic City Comedy Club at the Claridge with 1,000-seat theater, but there's only 75 people there.
Wow.
It's
that's
and
hard.
75 is a good number of people.
Amazing.
At a club, and they were great, and it was a great show, but it's different. It's different. But I like the club atmosphere. I like the bouncing off the walls laughter. I like the best sets are when you can roll it over into the next joke. This joke was so funny that this joke's even funnier, and this joke's even funnier. Think about the jokes that you've done, or the clubs that you've done, or the sets that you've done, where everyone goes, yeah, it's a weird audience because they'll laugh and then reset. What's the next one? Laugh, reset. Not funny. Second one, laugh, reset. but you're trying to find that role. And the best clubs, which by the way, the Cellar's best club, and like that bleeds comedy out of the walls.
Yeah.
But the best clubs allow audiences to do that more often than not.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because you want some things are designed poorly. You want everyone kind of in front of you. Certain clubs, you have an audience in front of you, but you also have an audience to your left and you have an audience to your right. So it's 3 separate audiences you're dealing with. You want the ceilings to be low. You want laughter to reverberate. You want the lights to be dimmed and you focus perfectly. You want the wait staff to be a little more quiet. It's all very sensitive.
The sound to be good as well.
The sound has to be good. That's something that people mess up the most often.
Yeah, there's a lot of clubs that I do open mics in that the sound is awful.
Yeah, we had I get to do a lot of shit at Rodney's now, and we do our mic and we do our show, and they have an incredibly expensive soundboard, and they do that because they also do like private parties and DJs and whatever. But those motherfuckers fuck with the soundboard so often that like we've then had shows where like I can't fix the sound to make it sound, or like maybe a higher pitched voice is now pinging, but like the other voices are good. So I finally got the guy to show me how to, no matter what, I show up and I go and it resets to Kevin. It's called Kevin. Is the name of the board, and it's just the perfect. It's like this is perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely perfect.
Rodney's is a great club. Like, when did they reopen? Because they shut down for a while, didn't they?
Yeah. New Year's Eve a year ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so a year and 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Dangerfields. Which I don't think anyone from Dangerfield is going to listen to this. God, that thing fell apart. It just fell apart. It was they didn't really take care of it, and it was gross, and it was bound to go. And then so
who's the new owners now?
So we talked about the Strip, right? So the Strip during the pandemic was going to close, and they had an angel investor who everyone thought was Jerry Seinfeld. And it wasn't. It was just a guy who did a little bit of comedy and liked comedy and had some money. And then I won't tell you the whole story, but they bought him off. And then he decided to buy Dangerfields. His name's Mark. He's a great dude. He loves comedy. And he sunk a lot of fucking money to that club. Wow. Made a lot of mistakes, but things are getting really, really good there. The sound's much better. The seating's much better. The lighting's much better. And it was just a process of him learning how to do that stuff. But
it's a beautiful
club. But
he
really cares, yeah.
It's a beautiful club. You feel like you're walking into like, I don't know. You kind of feel like you're going back in time a little bit. It's just really beautiful.
You know what's a beautiful club? I just found this out the other day. I've never been here, which was, it used to be called The Pit, which is on 24th Street. It was the People's Improv Theater. That was like a really fun, like kind of, gross theater. But like a theater, like a really cool, and then they had a basement show and a top show and all that kind of stuff. They reopened as the Asylum, and I was there I was doing a Don't Tell show on Thursday, and beautiful. Oh my God. Like I walked in, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking beautiful. And then Bill Burr dropped in.
What?
That was cool. Hell yeah.
He's in the city at the moment.
He's doing Glenn Ross. And so now he's just jumping around everywhere.
Yeah,
He was awesome. He was so funny.
I was barking at St. Mark's last night, and these people left this like barbershop thing. Have you ever heard about this barbershop? Anyway, Bill Burr did a drop in there last night.
It's a good show.
Yeah. Okay. I need to get around a bit more. There's so many clubs.
That's not a club. I think it's just a barbershop.
Okay.
And the guy runs the show out of there, but it's a popular show.
Yeah. And you're on Don't Tell?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations.
Fun. Well, okay, so Don't Tell is a really cool thing, but they're not like, they do a lot of them, but only like once a quarter are they filmed.
Gotcha.
Like the super filming of them. I've probably done like 10 of them.
Wow. They've really grown.
Dude, they're incredible. Like
their marketing,
their marketing is insane. Their marketing's better in smaller cities too. Like there's just a lot to deal with in New York and a lot of other competition. But like Chattanooga, Don't Tell is like you could sell 200 tickets like that. It's easy.
Is it a revolving crew that goes to every single show and does? Or is it like, have they got people that organize in each?
Yeah, they have different people in each city that organizes each one. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I got a couple of friends that have done that, I mean, that's a big milestone for a comic, especially if you get on the filmed one. And
Oh, if you get on the filmed one,
and you get the clips done of you.
Yeah, but every one I've done has been really, really good. You know, the Asylum one was actually starting to be kind of a bad one because the theater's so big, and it was on a Thursday, and they only sold like X amount of tickets. And then the host was like trying to warm them up. Great host, but it just wasn't really happening. And it was like, oh, is this going to be the first Don't Tell that's not excellent? And then Bill Burr showed up, and then yep, it was excellent.
Wow,
it was great. It was great after that.
I'd love to see him live. I've never seen him.
He's exactly what you think it is.
Okay.
You know, you see some celebrities that you see, and you're like, oh, you're older, or you're different, or shorter, or whatever. He sounded exactly how you think he looks and sounds.
Wow.
And reacts, and yeah.
Were you always a fan of comedy?
Yeah, turns out.
Yeah. Were you did you used to watch comedy as a kid?
Yeah, I used to watch Comedy Central all the time.
Yeah.
Premium Blend was the shit. You know, in college, we watched Dave Chappelle's Showtime set over and over and over and over. We had it on DVD that we like ruined the DVD and like could quote that, you know.
What was the show that Dave Chappelle used to do? Oh, the Chappelle Show.
The Chappelle Show,
That was great.
That was great.
The blind guy, the blind black guy.
We should talk about,
That
this
was
reminds me of the
funny.
SNL Chris Farley where he's like, what was that, remember when you did that thing? That was cool. All right, yeah. Let's just talk about the Chappelle Show for the next 27 minutes.
Yeah, man. It's a journey.
Yeah, you know, again, everything I'm saying, and if you've made it this far, 19 people.
It's growing.
Okay, if you made it this far, a lot of this has just been my journey, and a lot of this has been the way that I want to do it. And mainly the way I do it is because I hate social media and I don't want to do it. And if I have to do something I hate to do something I love, I'm not going to do it, which is why I quit my job, right?
Why do you not like social media?
I get anxiety. I just get social media anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, I can get 100, great comics on a thing, and I will desperately think about the one negative thing, even though I know it's not a real person.
Yeah.
Or it's like a 12-year-old boy in India.
Yeah.
Like I'm still like, and it just too much anxiety for me. I just
yeah.
want to get in front of you and prove to you that I'm funny.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But with that being said, in the 13 years I've been here, I have seen people in many different ways succeed. Many, many different ways succeed. Like just taking different paths, We do a thing, it's called the Comedy Mob Festival, right? So in lieu of the Bringer Show, we do a big festival, and it's really, really fun. It's usually packed out. The finals of our first festival, which was about 7 years ago, it was like Jay Jordan won, Jocelyn Chia got like third place, Michael Salgarolo got second place. He doesn't even do comedy anymore. He beat out John Marco Ceresi, who unfortunately didn't place, even though he crushed. Sam Morrison, who's now on Broadway doing his one-man show. And all these people made it in different ways. Wow. Jay Jordan made it by being, number one, fucking hilarious. One of the smartest, funniest comics. But he went into the writing stuff with Jon Stewart. John Marco did it by posting on social media and having his own podcast. Jocelyn Chia did it by really grinding at clubs and getting past at the cellar pretty much immediately.
Wow.
Sam Morrison did it by writing a one-man show that then got on Broadway. Like, they're all different paths to get this, and these are all just people. And then one guy quit. So that's also a different path, but he had a baby, and he went into academia and stuff. But, it's just different. Like, everyone has their own different thing. Riley Lassen was on that. Riley Lassen got big because she is just the nicest, friendliest person in the world and got on a radio show. Like, it was like on a morning show for a long time and got really popular because of that,
What do you say about comics being clean and then being like what you call, I guess, a dirty comic or edgy comic? Because there's, obviously going through the open mic scene, it's the humor in open mic humor is very different to show humor. You can say whatever you want and be a lot more edgy, but eventually you got to get booked. You want to get booked unless you can create your own pathway and not worry about it.
Right.
How do people balance that line when they are more of an edgier sort of dirty comic but want to make a career out of it?
Most comics that start off edgy. why do most comics that start off? And listen, I'm also talking about like different paths and all that stuff. Like that's what we're talking about, right? Some comics are just so good that no matter what they do, they will succeed. Like Shane Gillis, Philadelphia guy. I've met him before. Like I know, like I used to work with him, and he like so funny that no matter what he does, he will be fucking hilarious, right? He will make it, right? Which is funny because his other guy, John McKeever, who's Gillian Keeves, you know that? He's also the funniest comic in the world, just doesn't like stand-up comedy and chooses not to do it.
Wow.
But could also just be a super famous stand-up comic if he wanted to and didn't have anxiety about it, right? But he's a great director as well. With that being said, most comics start out dirty, especially male comics, but also female comics, you know, period jokes and all that stuff, right? Why? Why does that happen? It happens because most comics don't know what they're doing when they start off, and they don't have that supernatural funny stuff like Shane Gillis or Dave Chappelle or whatever. And in their 5-minute set, they do have 2 good jokes, but everything else is they got a reaction. And when you're nervous on stage and the crowd reacts, and that reaction can be, in your mind, you're going, oh, good, they like that. Okay, that's a good one. I'm gonna keep doing that one, right? And then so you start kind of writing for reactions a little bit and start writing a little more of that stuff and a little more. It always starts out raunchier. It always starts out about sex. It always starts about your dick. It always starts out about your period. It always starts about, oh shit. Like that's what people do.
And
right?
do you think also it's something to do with the way that we interact with our friendships? Like prior to getting into comedy? Because we're dirty with our friends.
Yeah.
We talk about everything.
Dude, but you know Ted Barton. Like, Ted Barton is a clean comic. He never did that. But he's also a guy who never really curses that much.
Yeah,
and, like, you know, and then sometimes, like, you just curse a little too much in the beginning. You do grow out of that stuff. You do, like, not age-wise. You just get better than that. I curse a lot on stage. I say the F word. My opening line is usually "fuck you guys." You know, you've heard me say it. Again, nice hole. Like, do you know how hard it is to open with "fuck you guys"? And get people to be like, "Oh, I like this guy." Like, it took me a long time to figure that out. But if you wanted, it's always a great test to then try to do clean and raunchy. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Just do what you got to do. Most clubs don't care if you're too raunchy. But also, there's a path for you. There's a path for raunchy people if you want to go really dark, if you want to go really raunchy. But most people do grow out of that or get better at that or quit, or then that is the path that they've chosen. You know, there was The Degenerates on Netflix, and all those people are too raunchy. But, you know, why? Why are they too raunchy? Because Yamanika was on that, but Yamanika was then on also Comedy Central, and then was also on, like, you can do all these things.
Yeah.
Also, what does raunchy mean? If the first time you ever get booked and they're like, you got to be clean, just don't curse. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Just don't curse. That's it. You could talk about sex, just don't say fucking.
Yeah.
You know? I was making love to my wife the other day. Like, I was, you know.
Yeah.
Which, that's I gotta go make love to my wife. I'll be right back. You know, so I that question is a newer comic question.
Gotcha.
like a 5 years in question.
Yeah.
Where eventually you will learn how to get out of that.
Uh-huh.
And even if you think your set's raunchy, it's pretty easy to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. If for some reason you need to do clean, which I've definitely had to do before, you know.
Yeah.
One of those colleges I did was a Christian college that they almost like tried not to pay us because somebody talked about underwear. It wasn't me, but they talked about their underwear and they thought that was inappropriate. But again, that was a Christian college. They're paying you. If they're paying you, they can ask you to do or say whatever they want. And if you can say no, like, you know, that's also like, that's another thing about like bringer shows, like bringing back into bringer shows is like, people do get upset about them, and I understand why, but nobody's taking anything from you. And you know what Broadway was when I'm assuming you did Industry Room, right? And you knew it was a 8-person bringer, right? 5-person bringer. Did you bring 5 people? Great.
Yeah.
You abided by your contract.
Yeah.
And you got on stage.
Yeah.
If you brought 4 and they didn't let you on stage, That's on you.
Yeah.
Like, that was the contract.
Yeah.
Now, the comedy mob's pretty lenient with that stuff where it's like, you tried. Like, we'll let you get on. Like, we don't let you get on for zero. Like, that's our kind of our only rule is like, but again, even the open mics, we do have the lottery system for if you want to bring one guest, there's a much smaller lottery system if you want to bring zero. And those people tend to get mad at me too because they're like, I've signed up 20 times. It's like, yeah, but 200 people sign up for those spots. No, not even that. Just for the not bringing spots.
Gotcha.
And if we have all 3 shows, we take 6 of those people. I can't do math very well, but that's not a good percentage. What, 3%?
That's fair.
So that's a 3% chance you'll get on, even though you signed up 20 times. You're not going to get it.
Yeah. You know? Plus, you have an obligation to get an audience there, so you have to fill
obligation
most of the
to
spots.
Everybody.
Yeah,
to everybody.
Of course, that's the whole.
Can
point
you
of the
imagine
game.
doing mob, us talking it up, and then showing up, and there are only 6 audience members? That makes everyone look bad.
It would diminish the value of the organization and what you're doing. So where do you get? Do you do a lot of current event stuff, or do you
never?
No. Okay. Because I don't.
I actually haven't listened to the news in like 3 months because I have too much anxiety about it. So,
well, I asked that question because I don't either, and it's not something I'm interested in. I don't listen to the news anymore, very rarely.
Yeah.
Sometimes something political, American political, will grab me, like something Trump says, and I'll look into it. But that's interesting. So, do you think it's an important thing for someone to get into doing current events, or it's not?
No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's kind of awesome, the people that do it.
It's amazing.
But just like crowd work, just like doing a full clean set, just like doing, it's a skill that you can learn.
Yeah.
I just don't want to learn it because it seems like a harder one to learn and I don't want to do it. But, other people, like, I was actually just watching John Oliver's 60 Minutes, and he was saying he started comedy because he liked to talk about politics and he liked to talk about current events. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Because that's tough. And a lot of that changes all the time. And that they're not evergreen sets. Like, you got to change that every 6 months, every year. But it is a skill you can learn if you wanted to go into it. But I would recommend, here's the one, like, I feel like I'm giving you, like, dropping, like, stupid quotes and stuff.
No, I love it.
This is my favorite one.
Man. I love it.
This is my favorite one, and it really likens it to comedy and stand-up a lot, which is, I think this was Uta Hagen who said this. She's an acting teacher, which is essentially that everyone says, think outside the box. Think outside the box. What are you going to do to think outside the box? What kind of comedy are you doing? You're going to be like Brooklyn, like alt art and da-da-da-da, all that stuff. But before you think outside the box, it's good to learn how to be in the box. So learn how to do comedy like Jerry Seinfeld, and once you know that skill, then you could start dipping your toe out and start doing other things, right? It's the people that just want to do these other non stand-up comedy things that, it's a harder path. I'm not saying you can't make it, but it is a harder path, and it'll be much easier if so again, a skill is political comedy, a skill is crowd work, right? But it's easier to have those skills if you learn how to do stand-up comedy first. Stand-up comedy traditionally the way it's supposed to be, whether it's one-liner, storyteller, or, anything, observational or, self-deprecating, whatever. Learn how to do that first, and then you can start doing some of this other stuff. It'll make it much, much easier.
So going to storytelling for a second, there are people that are fantastic storytellers, no doubt. And I can see them. Like, I've got friends now that are, as they're developing, I'm like, hey man, you're actually a really good storyteller.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But that's a difficult thing when a lot of your sets, especially in the early days, you're for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk.
And when you get those check spots and they are not paying attention to you, like, let's say you do a 7-minute check. You get past New York Comedy Club.
Yeah.
You're doing a 7-minute check spot. Well, the first 3 minutes, they're not paying attention to you. So your big joke in that story is a callback to one of the first things you said. It's not going to work because they weren't fucking paying attention when you. And it's not on them. It's not on you. They were paying their checks. They were doing shit. It's like, it's tough. It's tough. I think most storytelling type comics also have a tight 5 one-liner stuff, which I do. You know, like if I know this is going to be tough in the beginning, I will just kind of hit them with some one-liners. I was hosting yesterday at the Grizzly Pear in McDougal, and they were all they all got sat late, and like we're all taking their drink orders, and I didn't want to go into any story stuff, so it was just a little bit of crowd work, boom, one-liner, a little bit of crowd work, boom, one-liner. Are they ready? Great, now here's a story.
Yeah.
You know, so again, yeah, that's a good observation, because that's a tough one.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself more of a storyteller?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen, like, because I've only really seen you at the Comedy Mob, and I haven't really seen you tell much stories. You've been more of a punchy premise punch kind of guy, and a lot of crowd work.
I think the better storytellers also do have a lot of those punches throughout. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, Hannibal Buress, who's a classic storytelling comic, still tends to abide by a lot of the rules.
Yeah.
Rule of 3 for comedy. A laugh every 15 seconds. A little, even if it's a little hit or a little hit, but it all is in the same world where we're talking about this similar thing, you know? Yeah.
No, it's incredible. Well, mate, we've got to wrap this up in a second. You want to give me your socials?
Nah.
How about now? Tell the world.
There's some guy taking our picture, and I gave him the figure.
Tell the world your Instagram.
So you said, I told you about I was doing Shakespeare Abridged.
Yeah.
I did that for a long time, and I also did that with many different casts, and I traveled the country with it, and it was Shakespeare Abridged, and then it was History. It's a British comedy troupe that kind of came over here, and then I did History of the World Abridged, and then Hollywood Abridged, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's all just abridged versions of these things. So all my socials are Kevin Abridged.
Kevin Abridged.
Because I did it back in that time. I also thought it was genius at the time, because I was like, yeah, social media is the abridged version of Kevin. And so my email is Kevin Abridged, my Instagram's Kevin Abridged, my wife who runs my TikTok is Kevin Abridged, like my Twitter. But people don't get it. And for a while, the owner of Stand Up New York thought my last name was Abridged. I'm not changing it now, though.
So don't change it. And Comedy Mob for guys that are wanting to do one-person bringers, potentially get past at clubs. Hit these guys up. Comedy Mob is absolutely awesome. It's a great organization. What they're doing for comics, they're giving guys a run. So check him out. Check out Kevin. He's a fucking funny dude. I've really, really enjoyed watching you, man. You make me laugh every time I see you on stage. I'd like to see you rip on a big show too. You'll have to let me know when you're doing one next.
Hell yeah.
We'll come and watch. Mate.
See, that's why bringer shows are easy for me, because I never invite anyone to anything. So I'm 15 years in, but if I wanted to, bring 30 people to a show tomorrow, I could.
Yeah.
I never invite anyone to anything.
If you don't have to do bring a show, if you can get out of that thing, you would.
Sure.
So it's a good thing that you.
Also, you don't. I know this is ending.
No, we got time. We're good.
But you don't need it. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you've been doing comedy a year and you're only doing open mics and you've gotten a show here or there, but you do have friends that want to go to a show. Do a show where it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Do a show that if you bring X amount of people, they'll let you be at a club, wherever that club may be, and get to perform for those friends that you wanted to. Or produce your own shit.
Yeah.
Just produce your own things. Produce your own dumb podcast in front of with 21 listeners. It'll be great, man.
21's a good number.
Also, these are all opinions.
I know, no. I've appreciated. I wanted to get you on because you're a bit of a veteran of the game. You've been working hard. You've created a great pathway for yourself. You're obviously a very funny comic.
Thank you, brother.
And it's good for guys, especially guys like me that are coming up, to pick your brain for a while and learn.
Well, also one of the things you're doing that's super right is you're being humble about it. It's going to take a long time. You're doing your own thing, but you're doing one thing also that a lot of amateur comics don't do, which is you're also very professional. You show up on time. You don't, you abide by a drink minimum if it's there. You respond to emails. Like that's a big thing, right? Like we can't pass you to the booker if you were unprofessional leading up to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to the show, and then everyone was late. You were late. You were like, oh, my bad, I didn't read that email, you know, and then you got on stage and you murdered. It's still like,
Yeah, leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
it's just, okay, you're going to be successful, and I hope, I wish you all the best, and I want you to be successful, but I can't vouch for you.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't do that. You know?
I get it.
Because essentially what we do at Rodney's is we give people that opportunity, but we can't decide, but we vouch for people.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, this person is good enough to watch their tape.
Gotcha.
Like, watch this tape. This
Yeah.
is good. You know?
No. I think I hear you've got to. Yeah, you got to conduct yourself well, like in your life, because all those impressions, every impression is important.
Sure.
Everything, and you don't forget when someone does something. If someone does something for me, for example, like maybe I'll be at a bar and I'll buy like 3 rounds. I'll buy a round, I'll buy a second round, and then I'm like, maybe, you know, but if someone never opens their wallet and buy the 3rd round, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna. Okay, I'll probably remember this, and maybe I won't buy you a round. You just remember every little interaction with the human being. You always remember, no matter how small or how big.
Yeah.
So it's important to be a good person.
I've also fucked up a lot of those interactions. I've made mistakes. One specific one is I look like another comic. His name's Peter Ravello, and very funny comic, really nice guy. And I look so much like him that, like, when my wife saw him, she thought it was me.
Wow.
Like, that's how much we look alike. And it doesn't bother me. And it doesn't bother me because, like, he's a nice guy and I like him and he's past the cellar and he's like, you know, whatever. But I remember one specific day I was sitting at Same New York and somebody, like, came up to me and it got to me, like, that one time. And I, like, kind of yelled at him a little bit. 3 years later, we're driving to Atlantic City together, like, to do a show. And he's like, hey, do you remember me? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, I remember you, you dick. And I was like, damn, my bad on that one. Like, I have made those bad first impressions.
We all have.
I'm also pretty sure I'm banned from the Tiny Cupboard. Let me just tell you this story, then we'll get out of here.
No, we got time.
Because this is a bad first impression. And if you're listening, which you're not, because you're not one of the 23 listeners, like...
We're growing. If anyone who doesn't know the Tiny Cupboard, it's this little club in Brooklyn. I've never been there, but if on their open mic list, they say, can't punch down, can't do this, can't do that. They've got all these can'ts, and that was the reason why I haven't been there. So I can't say if it's a good or bad club for...
It's a good club.
Okay.
It's a very good club.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, they were the only thing happening.
Gotcha.
They had a rooftop, illegally, but they had a rooftop that they were doing a lot of great shows, getting great people. And I was on a couple of their shows, and I was auditioning for a thing and had packed in 5 shows in one night because the next day was the audition. So it was something, Stand Up New York, which is in the Upper West Side. And then my last show, that was what I did to you, the last podcast, giving you the finger. The last show was at the Tiny Cupboard, right, which is deep in Brooklyn. And I'm working on this thing. I'm in a good mood, but it took me about an hour and 20 minutes to get there via train, right? But again, I'm coming from the Upper West Side. And I walk in, and there was a girl at the selling candy, and I was like trying to be funny. And I said, oh my God, this place is so far. Because also I live in Queens. It was going to take me a long time to get home. And she goes, I don't think it's that far. And I go, no, it's really far, right? Turns out that was the owner. They were pretty mad at me. My bad. I did apologize to both of them. But again, first impression, I was trying to be funny, not funny. Man, did I do the wrong joke on the wrong person. And I have not worked there since. And that was 2.5 years ago, something like that. But
go back there. You should be like, I've moved next door. It's so close now.
I think that's the only club I'm banned from. We'll see. We'll see.
Oh, Kev, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Fuck yeah. Let's keep talking. How much is it for another half hour? Just pay for it.
Let's go have a beer.
Hell yeah.
All right,
I don't
guys.
do carbs, but okay.
look out for this guy. Follow Comedy Mob. Follow Kev on Instagram. I'll have all the details.
I wish I
on
could have
the,
been funnier instead of like informational, but
you were great.
I hope you
man.
liked
We were
it.
great. We're going to do plenty more of these. Don't worry. Guys, see you in the next one. Thanks, Kev.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of Going After It with Cam Bird. Produced by Cam Bird. Podcast edited by Calpit. Music by Brian Rigby. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And if you can, get after it.